Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is now a National Historic Landmark that is utilized as a tourist attraction. We delve a lot into the history of mental health treatments throughout the years, and we also feature a lot of paranormal activity. Originally, they say that this building was built to house 250 patients. It was not built to house 250 patients because of its size. It was built to house 250 patients because the superintendent believed that that's how many patients he could visit with and manage their care daily. Now, in the later years, in around the 50s and 60s, our population became about 2,400 with the patients with severe staff shortages. There were beds all through the hallways. Rooms that were designed to hold 2 beds could have 3 or 4 across the room. So obviously not ideal for the patient treatment and for the progression of their mental health treatment. Pretty much everyone in this room would have been a patient at this asylum. A lot of times women could be admitted here by their spouses for excessive reading. Sometimes women were committed here because their husbands had taken a mistress and they needed a way to dispose of their wife. And at the time, if you were put in here by a male relative or your husband, they were the only person who could come back and get you out. You were never able to be deemed sane enough to be released on your own accord. So lobotomy, where it seems pretty barbaric to us now, is a pretty common practice to combat symptoms, again, of mental illness. They took an ice pick-like tool and they pushed it into the corner of your eye and they moved it in a windshield wiper type motion, and it would separate the parts of your brain that controlled personality. A lot of people considered that murdering of the soul. So we don't have an exact number of lobotomies that were performed. That would require records for many, many years to be able to tally those up. We just tell people that there were hundreds of lobotomies.
Being a lunatic asylum, the Trans-Allegheny has many stories and assumptions about its past patients. Some of the most commonly told stories are about a girl named Little Lily. Seemingly the most common version of the story is that she was born to a woman in the asylum who was a victim of Civil War soldier violence. Her mother is said to have died in childbirth, and Lily was left to the nurses of the ward. She is said to only have lived there for a short time, contracted pneumonia at a young age, and then died.
And she's kind of playful. People bring her toys and balls. We do have some spirits that don't seem to like to interact with a lot of people. They may prefer some of our guides over the other ones. Sometimes they may not talk to some of them at all. We have a couple really playful guys on the 4th floor, Frank and Larry. They like to play cards. They really interact when people tell them dirty jokes and things of that nature. I think people kind of assume that things would be really negative here, but we really try to be respectful and approach the paranormal from a place of curiosity and respect. We don't have a lot of angry things. We like to say that if you have a slightly negative experience, it may just be somebody aggressively trying to get your attention as opposed to aggressively trying to hurt you. Have something that they call, or an entity that they call the creeper, up on the 4th floor. Now, our staff doesn't necessarily have negative interactions with him, but he kind of crawls across the floor, and they've seen him like clinging to doors and crawling up walls, which definitely would be very unsettling to anyone that would come in here. We believe that that is just his way of telling people to leave him alone.
The stories that are often told about ghosts and other folklore tales stem from its storied past. It's only natural that from the historical necessity of women bringing their children to the facility with them, would stories like Little Lily's come to our imaginations. The asylum story comes out of 2 centuries of incredibly transformative history for West Virginia and the field of psychology and mental health. Its purpose in the region was to provide moral treatment, but what that means was subjective to the time and understanding of treatments. The legacy of its ghostly figures points to the history and the morality of the place and its inhabitants' treatments. Often these narratives tend to attempt to draw attention to the wrongs to find the rights. The narratives are meant to evoke the evolvement of human experience, personalizing the history of the place to learn from the tragedy.